Welcome to the first episode of the Space Infrastructure Hub podcast series. I'm Daphney Molewa from SASTA, the South African Agency for Science and Technology Advancement, a business unit of the National Research Foundation. This podcast is part of the Space Infrastructure Hub Skills Development Program that is dedicated to building skilled support for space programs and also for role players in the innovation ecosystem. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Nale Mudau, who is from SANSA, the South African National Space Agency. She'll be unpacking a topic of all things human settlement and urban planning. Dr. Mudau, are you able to tell us a bit more about yourself and also your career path in space science? And welcome to our podcast, by the way.
Thank you very much. My name is Nale Mudau. So I obtained my undergrad from University of Venda, majoring in maths and chemistry. And from there, I did some networking course at an Institute of Software and for Institute of Space and Software Applications at HOTEC. That was an institution of the Department of Science or Department of Communication then. And from there, I did my master's in remote sensing. So that is where I actually started learning more about remote sensing. That was at the University of Paris 6 in France. And then I recently completed my PhD at WETS. So I started working at a private company long time ago, and also worked at CSIR, Power Utility Company, ESCO. And then I decided I need to join the space agency. So I've been at the space agency for more than 10 years now. And I've worked as a remote sensing scientist. And now I'm also responsible for data products and services.
Wow. So, Doctor, tell me a bit more about this human settlement and urban planning. Is it part of space science? Is it something that you've studied? Is it something that you've picked up along the way? Are you able to just maybe someone who's at home wondering, how do I get involved in a career of this nature?
Yes. So actually, yes, the journey of many people remote sensing or focusing on remote sensing would be different because we don't have an undergrad yet in the country that is focusing specifically on remote sensing. So as I indicated, I majored in maths and chemistry, and then I did my master's in remote sensing. Of course, during master's, it was a coursework, so we will study everything from your physics to the applications of remote sensing. So my first job, actually, I was exposed to all the applications from image processing to ensure that the data is processed to the right levels and so forth, and also to the applications. So it was, of course, through time and experience, then I started focusing on human settlements. So space for human settlements. So it's not very common that one can study remote sensing, focusing on human settlements from undergrad. So normally we would specialize maybe from honors project as much as there will be for a very limited period of time, but mostly we focus from master's level. And then, of course, when you go to PhD, that's when you start focusing on that theme that you want to focus on. Yes.
Oh, that's quite interesting. And Doctor, just tell us a bit more about the project itself. Like, how is SANSA involved in the project? Is it a project that's on its own? Is it involved with other projects? Are you able to just maybe unpack the project for us?
Yes. So the Space Infrastructure Hub project it's one of the country's strategic infrastructure projects. Actually, it's number SIP 22. So this is aimed at building or supporting building of critical space infrastructure in the country and capabilities. So when we're talking critical in space infrastructure, we're looking at satellites, space instruments, also ground infrastructure that will support the management or operations of those space instruments. We are also focusing on building those products and services that are dependent on space to address the societal and environmental challenges that the countries faced on. We are also looking at ensuring that we have space industry that is able to utilize space and help us generate even income by providing services to other countries, maybe in Africa and also globally. Most importantly, through the project, we are also looking at promoting or supporting research and development in space. And also, most importantly, human capital development, because we need people who will be able to exploit the technology and, of course, derive the insights that we need. So from SANSA's side, we are focusing on building the space instruments and or coordination thereof, including satellites, especially satellites. Satellites are most like amongst the top on the priority list because we need our own satellites that will give us the insights. We are also focusing on the ground segments. So we do have a ground station at Hartbeespoort where we are able to receive data and also provide services to the space community internationally mainly. So we are also looking at expanding our infrastructure. We are also looking at supporting industry development, more focusing on Earth observation. We have a program that is supporting startups and companies and guiding them in terms of some of the priority areas that the country needs to focus on that can benefit from space science and technologies. So from Earth Observation Directorate, which is where I come from, we are focusing mainly on building what we call decision support tools. It's literally part of the products and services that we can derive from space. So this is to ensure that everyone can benefit from space. As much as you need specialized fields or degree to be able to exploit the information from space science and technologies, but the benefits need to go to the communities. So at Earth Observation Program, we are focusing on developing those decision support tools that will help anyone from our traditional leaders, municipalities, government, to take into account the data that we receive from satellites when planning. So we are focusing on many themes in our program. And of course, today we'll be focusing on what we are doing on human settlements. Okay.
Oh, that's quite interesting, though. But I'm hearing you touching a bit on societal challenges that in human settlement. So how does space science then address those challenges?
Yes. So space, it's a critical infrastructure that we need every day. So think about commuting from one place to the other. You need information from communication satellites and also navigation to be able to direct us in terms of which route to take, especially if you don't know the area. The communication that we use every day, be it with our families or friends, and also where we go socialize, that infrastructure, it's made possible by some contribution of space. So you're looking at communication, navigations. Those are some of the technologies that we are using every day from space technologies that we actually cannot live without, even watching TV, the streaming and all that. So you cannot even begin a life, imagine a life without space science. But that is more, of course, on communication and navigation. So coming back then to Earth observation, which is the reason why we are actually even talking about human settlements or all space, all things space and human settlements. So with Earth observation, we are using Earth observation satellites to help us observe and monitor what is happening around us. So if we're focusing on human settlements, we are capturing satellites and we are capturing images, and with those images, we are able to pick up anything that is happening around us. So with your naked eyes, you can only see so much. But if you use satellites, we can zoom in and capture the whole globe at once, capture the whole region at once, South Africa, or even zoom in, depending on what we need. So we are able to then have a better picture and understanding of where our human settlements are. So as you can imagine, South Africa is big. You are looking at 1.2 million square kilometers. And our settlements are scattered everywhere across, like looking at your rural communities and here in the cities. So we definitely need other technologies to understand where human settlements are, because if we do not have an understanding of where they are, how they're growing over time, what kind of settlements are they, then we will not be able to plan in terms of what services they are required, be it looking at road infrastructure, amongst others. So with satellites, then we are able to detect the settlements. Of course, you need methodologies. Thanks to the advancement in computer vision, we are able to develop those algorithms, integrating AIs, so that we are able to detect human settlement quickly. If you think of the informal settlements, for example, they just happen. They're not regulated. So if we wait on using other methods, it might be difficult to pick them up. So with satellite data, then we are able to detect the information in terms of where they are, and then provide that information, of course, working with the relevant authorities, so that they're able to make informed decisions when they're planning for services, be it basic services, even when they're looking at developing those disaster management strategies and so forth.
All right. So it does also help with planning for natural disasters. Looking at the recent floods, is it something that we're able to use the science in that?
Definitely. So we also are able to derive other products that will look at vulnerability or exposure of human settlements to flooding, for example. So when we know where the settlements are, we are able to do such kind of analysis that will then help us to map out those communities that are vulnerable to flooding. So most of the areas that have been affected by floods, unfortunately, those are the areas that most of them we knew that they will be flooded through those models. So already then the information can be used to improve preparedness, and also to help with the mitigation. And of course, even during disasters, then we are also able to get information on human settlements that are affected. And from there, the authorities will be able to then come up with measures that would make sure that people are safe. And if they need to be evacuated, then they can be evacuated to safer places. So with the data that we have access to, we can definitely help improve decision making by making sure that decisions are made using spatial information and up-to-date spatial information for that matter.
All right. So then what is the future then for Earth observation in human settlement?
So in the future, we are hoping that first, South Africa needs to have all the satellites that it needs. So that's the future, so that we can acquire as many images as possible and then assess our human settlements. So that's first. But of course, looking at where technology is going, we're looking at satellites that will be able to have processing capabilities from space that will then provide us with near real time. Actually, it should then be real time, not near real time. So when we have satellites with the capabilities to process the images on board, then we can have the information processed as soon as the satellite captures the images. Then it means the access to images or insights then will become quicker to the authorities. We'll be able to send alerts, for example, in terms of where land invasion may be taking place, looking at the informal settlements. If it's during disasters, we can be able to then detect those settlements that are at risk and so forth. We're also looking at more predictive analysis, and this is the near future that we're looking at, where we'll be able to provide more insights in terms of what is likely to happen even in the next hour or in the next 2 hours. This is where we're looking at also building the digital twins that will allow us to simulate what is likely to happen in real life, but assessing that on a computer. For example, if you're looking at air pollution, we should be able to get to a point where we can say, as much as we know the environments that are prone or that are at risk of poor air quality, like your Mpumalanga, Gauteng, the areas that are next to the mines and most also next to the highways, as much as we are aware of those areas, we should be able to get to a point to where we can model what is the likely ways the poor air quality or the pollutants, where the pollutants likely to move to in case, for example, we have a roadblock. Because the minute you have a roadblock, then it means you have more emission there from the cars. So where would that emission go to? So it may go to those areas that maybe initially were not exposed to poor air quality. So we are looking at modeling such scenarios so that the decision makers and authorities are able to have all the insights that they need. So we're looking forward to having those simulations, whether you're looking at the insights that would improve service optimization of services, be it looking at the traffic to a local clinic or hospital in terms of event. But otherwise, we are also looking at the future must also ensure that the traditional leaders, for example, the chiefs who are responsible for managing their own land, use the space intelligence. So we are also looking at democratization of the data from space, so that it's not only limited to the cities or those with access. So while we are developing those decision support tools where decision makers can access the data through API and other methods, we also need to make sure that everyone, like community members also, they are able to access the insights. So this is where, for example, before you buy a house or you even build it at Hampego village, where I come from, you also have access to the information in terms of what is the likelihood of that area getting flooded, for example, or being affected by disasters. So we are also looking at ensuring that our settlements are transformed into sustainable settlements. As you are aware, our history led to the townships being located very far from the economic opportunities and so forth. So the future would also include ensuring that while, for example, human settlements is building, is upgrading informal settlements, it also takes into account the surroundings to make sure that people will have access to services, to make sure that those services are not only limited to your water and all water health services, but also include environmental services as well. Recently, we are hit with heat waves and occurrences of floods and so forth. So we need to also make sure the planning takes into account some of the insights that we derive from satellites, and make sure that they are implemented so that we build the safe and resilient communities.
Oh, that's interesting. But tell me, how close is this future that you're talking about? Are we talking about in a year's time we'll have real-time data, or is this now a prolonged future?
So, some are far, but not too far in terms of us having our own satellites, because, of course, building satellites or all the satellites that we need, it takes time. So it's not something that will happen tomorrow. But at SANSA, we are also working on our space program that will ensure that we have access to the satellites that we need. And all this innovation can then be embedded in these new instruments. The others, in terms of developing the insights and ensuring that everyone has access to this information, we are working on those programs, especially when we're looking at reaching out to those decision makers who will need access to the data, like your chiefs. As I mentioned, we launched a program called Natural Resource Management. So this particular program is focusing on reaching out to community leaders to make sure that they are able to manage their resources. And when it comes to human settlements, they don't allocate stands, for example, in areas that are not suitable for habitation. And then the other ones, in terms of building smart cities and climate resilient communities, for example, we are engaging the stakeholders, the relevant stakeholders, to start integrating the insights that we are deriving from human settlements so that they can make more informed decision. So yes, there are things that can happen maybe more in the long term, but we are using also the infrastructure that we have access to derive the insights that we need. So we are from our ground station, we do have access to satellites, satellite data. We do receive satellite data from our ground station. But in addition to that, we also have programs that are looking at purchasing, unfortunately, high resolution data meaning the data that will allow us to do more analysis in human settlements. So we also have programs that are looking at that to ensure that we don't wait, of course, for South Africa to have all the capabilities to then start deriving the insights. And also working with the startups, the small companies, we are also empowering them, of course, with funding so that they are able to develop those insights that will then help fast track the realization of this future that we all wish.
Yeah, but also tell me, how does then the public benefit? Like, what can we take away from all of this? How can we say, what are the benefits that that human settlement can then leave with a normal person on the ground?
Yes, so we are actually benefiting from space every day, and we don't even realize. For us to be able to even use the roads to come to work from where we stay, a lot of Earth observation information was used, of course, with other spatial and non-spatial data to ensure that those roads are placed at the right location, and the traffic will flow and so forth. So there's a lot of intelligence that is taken into ensuring that we access all the services that we have access to, even the communication services. One may not know, but for the telecom communication companies to even place their mask or infrastructure, they need to know where human settlement is so that they can place it at a location where it will be able to serve the communities. So the benefits are endless. It's just that we cannot imagine them, or we can't imagine every day seeing those satellites in space. but we are actually using the space every day. Now with the climate change, we are building the focus for the country and also the globe is to ensure that our communities are safe and resilient. So you won't be able to do that if you do not know where the settlements are. So we are able to assess and make sure that the settlements are safe. So of course, we wake up every day, we are able to even check the weather forecast. Those are some of the benefits that we don't even take into account. But that's Earth observation satellites also supporting us with the information, as much as there's also ground infrastructure that is being used. So the benefits are just endless. And we are also looking at building some of the instruments that will be on the ground, for example, looking at air pollution and so forth, so that we, in certain communities, they are there already, those projects are there to ensure that the communities are safe. So it may not be something that one can see every day, even when you are driving or walking, but we are actually benefiting every day. And without it, I'm sure we'll be lost.
And is there anything a normal human being can do while we're at home? Let's say they're watching this, they just want to know, what can I do to contribute to space size in human settlement?
Yes, so we are actually focusing also on community driven research or solutions using space. And unfortunately, we need to be able to communicate. So if you are a community member and you are interested, I think it would be good to also maybe engage SANSA, because what we are also looking at is, we know that we get so much data from satellites, or so much data from even aeroplanes that are taking aerial photography, and also drones, for example. But there's also a lot of intelligence that is on the ground that we can see, at least around our communities. So we are working on projects that will allow us then to integrate that information from the ground. So this could also be looking at, for example, yes, there may be a road in a certain settlement or a village, but maybe we get a bus that goes to town once a day. So that is not the information that we can derive from satellites. So there could be maybe some sources of pollution that we may not be able to see from space. So we want to work with communities, public, to also feed us with that information from the ground, because that talks to the status of the community that you come from. And to be able to address some of the issues and even opportunities, then we need that information that will be coming from the public or the community members themselves. So please do get in touch through our social media, and everyone can contribute as much as we can all benefit. So we also have apps. We simplify these days data collection. So we have app that you can use with your phone that captures whatever event that you are seeing, whether it's some after effects of flood or anything. You can just press. You don't even need any skills in remote sensing. As long as you can use a smartphone and you can use Google Maps, you should be able to also support us and government to build those communities that will be sustainable and, most importantly, safe.
Dr. Mudau, thank you for a fruitful conversation, and I hope that we'll be able to unpack more of this topic in the future. And to the viewers, thank you for joining us, and I hope that you've gained valuable knowledge in all things space in human settlement and urban development.